What would you do if something massive walked up to your tent in the dead of night? And it wasn't human. These campers didn't have to imagine it. They lived it. Across North America's wildest forests, ordinary people on camping trips have come face to face with something terrifying and unexplainable. From blood-chilling howls to shadowy figures just outside the firelight, these are 8 real encounters where campers claim they came eye to eye with Bigfoot and barely made it back to tell the story.
See the wind blowing everything over there.
Have you ever wandered deep into the wild, camera in hand, only to realize later you weren't alone? Meet the man behind Florida Sasquatch, a seasoned filmmaker, hiker, Bigfoot hunter, and outdoor photographer. For over a decade, he's made the wilderness his second home. His connection with the land runs deep. And in one of Florida's most mysterious locations, the Green Swamp, he captured something he didn't even notice at the time. It's not dramatized. There's no build-up, no music cues, just raw footage. And something moves. The story begins like many wilderness encounters do. Quiet, slow, peaceful. You hear the wind, you see the palmettos, you feel the stillness. His partner Kevin is nearby, but off camera. The plan was just to document the environment, nothing more. But when he got home and reviewed the footage, something jumped out. Right there, hidden behind the brush. A shadow shifted. A form ducked. Something tried to remain unseen. Watch for yourself. At first, he didn't believe it either. He'd been out there for hours and hadn't noticed anything. But on screen, that shadow wasn't acting like wind or light. It had intent. It was trying to hide. In the original upload, he edited the video, zoomed in digitally, added music, and overlaid text to point out the creature. But the response? Mixed. Some people couldn't see it clearly. Others said the shaky zoom ruined it. Most didn't believe him. That's when he decided to re-release the raw clips. No edits, no commentary, no spooky soundtracks or graphics. Just 2 back-to-back video segments filmed within minutes of each other. The first captured the movement, the second continued the journey. He wasn't trying to convince anyone, just offering a real look at what he saw and what he didn't know he saw. Until later. In his words, "I'm not going to insult your intelligence by telling you what to see. You'll see it, if you look." The Green Swamp, stretching across central Florida, is legendary for more than its gators and dense brush. It's home to one of the country's most persistent cryptids, the skunk ape. Said to resemble a smaller, smellier version of Bigfoot, sightings have been whispered about for decades. But footage? Rare. That's what makes this clip so compelling. It doesn't try to be anything, it simply is. In the second video, after turning off the camera, moving forward, and turning it back on again, you get a better view of the terrain. The brush is thick, the trail's barely visible. He's walking cautiously, filming as he goes. There's no narration, just natural sounds and the occasional shuffle of leaves. Then it happens again. Watch for yourself a darker shape, lower to the ground. It moves quickly, staying low in the palmettos. This wasn't a deer. It wasn't a hog. It wasn't wind. It had the gait and movement of something upright, something hiding. He believes there were 3 skunk apes present that day. 1 in the first clip and 2 more in the follow-up. They weren't startled. They were simply watching until they were noticed. But as he explains later in the video, 99% of his outings result in nothing. That's the reality of cryptid research. Long hours, stillness, waiting. And sometimes nothing happens at all. But I wouldn't trade this for anything, he says. This is peace. And that's what stands out about this footage. It wasn't made to go viral. It wasn't staged. It was just real. A man in the woods, a camera rolling, and something unexpected caught in the background. Watch for yourself. So now it's your turn. Look closely, scrub back, pause the frames. Ask yourself, what are you seeing? A trick of the light? A trick of the mind? Or a creature Florida folklore has whispered about for generations? Let us know in the comments. Do you see it? Have you ever had a moment like this in the wild? This is Florida Sasquatch, and the Green Swamp isn't done talking yet.
Both videos, uncut, unedited, just linked together. You can see it. This is the hat I was wearing that day. Wearing it for sentimental reasons. So I'm not going to insult your intelligence by sitting here telling you what you're going to see, and I don't use any scary music. You're just going to see 2 raw videos. Look, you'll find it. You'll see it. And when you see it, you'll see there's 2 others. I believe there are 3 skunk ape right there. Anyway, let me know what you think.
In the deep woods of northwest Georgia, the search for the unknown takes a new turn. On April 21st at 10:05 p.m. EST, Rick and Blake of Northwest Georgia Cryptids return with a special guest. Chuck Schlabs, formerly of Chasing the Beast, and now part of Cryptid Safari. Chuck brings new, compelling evidence to the table. The question remains, what are they chasing? And will they ever truly uncover the beast? Chuck's reputation precedes him in the cryptid world. He's been part of many investigations, but it's his recent encounters in the woods that are sparking new interest. LJ, another seasoned investigator, shares a terrifying moment where they were nearly outsmarted by creatures in the woods. On a ridge deep in the woods, Chuck and Rick found themselves flanked by 2 cryptids. Unaware they were being watched, Rick decided to outmaneuver the creatures, moving quietly down the side of the hill. But what he didn't expect was the response. What followed was more than just a game of cat and mouse.
It was 3 years ago at Bonavia Conference. We've got another friend down.
Okay, Chuck, you're back with us, bud.
Yeah, for the time being, I'm having technical difficulties, I think.
Is your Wi-Fi on? Or do you have Wi-Fi?
Is he still there? You still there, Chuck?
I was within 10 feet of one of them, Rick recalls. As he crept closer, the brush rustled, and for a brief moment, he thought he was face to face with Chuck. But no, Chuck was still up on the hill. Then came the sound, loud, crashing through the brush like a bulldozer. A full-on retreat by the cryptid. We didn't expect that. It was accidental, but it was a breakthrough, says Rick. That moment marked a significant shift in their investigation. Could this be one of the creatures they've been tracking for months? As they processed the encounter, Chuck and Rick switched gears. They moved from the immediate tension of the woods to their investigation of photographs, images that might hold answers to their cryptid quest.
Explain this one. This one was caught in northwestern Oklahoma at a lake that we used to research. We really got to go into other areas and kind of just drew away from this one. He was just standing around, just taking random pictures. Once he got home and started analyzing the pictures and reviewing them, then that's when he realized he caught something there.
One of the most compelling photos they review was taken just before a strange occurrence. Chuck had been out near his friend's house in Hornaby, where they sat around a fire. After Chuck let out a strange yell, something responded, loud and distinct. It wasn't long before Chuck realized the roar wasn't from him, but from something far bigger. As Chuck rushed back to the group, they saw it, a blur darting across the light of a nearby floodlight. A deer, startled and running, was being chased by something far larger. A photo captured the creature's heat signature, confirming it wasn't a deer, but a massive being lurking in the shadows. What was more astonishing was the distance, about 60 yards from where Chuck stood. The figure they captured was about 8 feet tall, racing across the property at high speed. The night was filled with mystery, and they knew they had encountered something they couldn't explain.
The story behind this pic. I had 3 people. I mean, I live in a town of, I'd say approximately 4,000 people, and there's a bunch of people that know what I do. And I had 3 people contact me and said that they were seeing monkeys on the creek. And
Chuck's cryptid search has led him to various locations. One in northwestern Oklahoma, where he captured images of what he believes to be a juvenile cryptid. The photos were taken in quick succession, revealing a face, then a hand covering the creature's face, followed by the figure retreating into the woods. "There's no doubt it was aware of me," Chuck says. These images were taken near the Cheyenne and Arapaho Reservation, land known for its eerie encounters. The creature in question wasn't alone. There were reports of large footprints in the area, adding weight to Chuck's discovery. In another case, Chuck was on the land between the lakes, an area notorious for cryptid sightings. Here he captured yet another disturbing image, this time a face hidden between trees. At the time, he hadn't seen it, but upon reviewing the photo later, the evidence was clear. Something was watching him.
Active area, all the prints the pictures of the prints that I sent you, that all came from the same area. The biggest track there was about a 23-inch track. And what was amazing about that picture, not this picture, but that area where the track was, the 23-inch track, is I was going to cast it, and I should have, but the track was too deformed because there were baby tracks inside. That's one of the baby tracks right there. There were baby tracks inside the big track, and it kind of deformed the track a little bit. But the big toe on that print was probably the size of 3 of my fingers put together. I mean, it was huge.
Well, my main thing is, look how deep it is.
Yeah.
Like that, that's what really catches my attention. I mean, not only the definition of the toes, but the depth of the track. You can tell whatever made that was heavy.
Yeah.
What depth would you say this track was actually marred down into the ground?
I would say it was a good inch and a half.
As Chuck talks about his experiences, the line between what is and isn't possible begins to blur. The cryptid phenomenon isn't just folklore. It's an ongoing mystery with real encounters that continue to leave people questioning the unexplained. What's out there, and are we prepared to face it? What if the creatures we've all dismissed as myths are actually just hiding in plain sight, waiting for the right moment to be noticed? Diesel in New Jersey isn't your average outdoor channel. They aren't just here for the hike. They're here to take you into the unknown. Boots on the ground, cameras rolling, capturing what most of us wouldn't even believe. This time they return to Area 4, deep in the woods of New Jersey.
It's the second dead animal we've seen today.
Where?
It's over here at the school.
Squirrel?
A place they've visited before. A place known for strange sounds, unexplained figures, and something that seems to be watching from the trees. Come take a walk with them and see for yourself. As they step off the beaten path, the forest is still, too still. The kind of silence that presses on your ears. Then, suddenly someone mutters, "What's that?" Just barely off trail, something shifts. The group stops. Eyes scan the brush, but the answer comes back too quickly. It's a log. Maybe, maybe not. The shape blended too easily into the environment, suspiciously still, like something frozen in mid-motion. Watch for yourself.
A blue balloon over here. Watch this line. See, like blue balloon.
Tension breaks for a moment when someone calls out, "I think I see that animal we seen here." Whatever they saw wasn't a squirrel, but the reference shifts quickly. First squirrel, then, "I see a blue balloon." A child's party decoration out here in the middle of nowhere? Odd, but it's not the first time they've seen it. "The weird thing I visit every time I come here," someone remarks. A spot known to hold on to strangeness like a magnet. Then things get weirder. A squirrel leaps toward the camera, landing near someone's face. Jarring, random, almost symbolic. But it's dismissed as coincidence. Still, the moment shakes the mood. Nature's being chaotic. Or maybe it's being used as a distraction. Another group member casually says, "Look at that axe."
Spray rubber in my face. Ugh. It's on my glasses. You get it? Don't touch the lenses.
But it's not just any axe. It's placed, not dropped, like it's been used or displayed. Right then, something shifts in the camera's focus. Watch for yourself. Between two trees, wedged into the bark, is a large shape. It's massive, brown, and doesn't move a muscle. Not windblown, not vibrating like the leaves around it. A brown, hairy giant. Almost part of the tree, almost carved from it. But the outline is too defined, shoulders too wide. The camera lingers, unsure. Is this the moment? Is this a Sasquatch? Or a Yeti?
What's that poop? Big ass axe.
What stands out isn't just the shape, but the stillness. It's too still. Whatever it is, it's watching, or hiding. And Diesel in New Jersey's team knows they've seen something not quite right. They don't scream, they don't run, they observe, they study. That's what makes their footage matter. They return to this area time and again because it gives them something. Patterns, symbols, and encounters that are just clear enough to keep you awake at night. Watch for yourself. As they move on, the team remains quiet, reflective. Even playful moments, mentioning poop, joking about squirrels, are just noise covering the unease, because once you see something that shouldn't be there, everything else starts to feel like a setup, a test. The forest begins to feel staged, like you're being watched from the wings of a play you didn't know you were in. This isn't a film set. There's no CGI, no scripted jump scare, just raw footage. A still figure near a tree that no one can quite explain. Balloons in the woods, squirrels acting strange. Objects out of place. These aren't isolated incidents, they're layers of the same mystery.
Like blue balloon. And then the weird thing I visit every time I come in.
And every time Diesel in New Jersey returns, something new gets added to that puzzle. Watch for yourself. Not every video ends with a scream or a chase. Sometimes the silence is the scariest thing, the quiet after the encounter, the moment when the footage stops and the mind takes over. And that's exactly what this channel captures. Those subtle but chilling pieces that hint at a larger presence just beyond our understanding. The camera may turn off, but the woods don't forget, and neither will you. Watch again. See what you missed the first time. Maybe that log wasn't a log. Maybe it blinked. What if something's been living just beyond the tree line, watching us, but never making itself fully known? On the quiet edges of New York's Long Island, one man is asking that very question every day. Mike Colantonio, founder of the Long Island Bigfoot YouTube channel, is not your average Sasquatch hunter. He's a military veteran turned boots-on-the-ground researcher with a unique approach.
The most notable was they were just walking the trails.
He doesn't chase monsters. He builds trust. Instead of casting doubt, Mike casts gifts. Fruit, pastries, and even candy are left behind in remote forested areas in hopes that something or someone will accept his offering. But today's investigation, this one's different. Mike isn't in the dense woods or a mountain pass. He's on private farmland because someone called him in. Something strange was happening on this property, and it had been happening for years.
There was a tree, or they thought was a tree, right? Like a big tree that was just...
Watch for yourself as Mike begins surveying the farm perimeter and captures a strange structure deep in the tree line. A twisted, bent arch that resembles what researchers call a break. A structure commonly associated with Sasquatch territory markers.
Most of what's going on is audible. Just hearing things that...
The landowner had told Mike something chilling. One night, while working outside, they saw what they first thought was a tree, but it moved, slowly, like it had intent, like it was watching them.
Fox in here forever. They've had birds of prey in here forever.
Mike listens carefully, never jumping to conclusions, but he knows what they saw lines up with classic Sasquatch behavior. Perfect stillness, camouflage, and deliberate observation. As he walks the property, Mike stops near a gifting site he's visited before. What he finds there makes him pause. An old bait pile, tampered with. Something had taken the fruit, but not in a way a raccoon would. No gnaw marks, just gone.
Look at this. This is very typical. Not 10 feet off trail, we have...
He notices subtle changes in the ground cover, crushed grass, broken stems, and he marks these signs mentally. A trained eye like Mike's doesn't just look for footprints, he looks for patterns. Watch for yourself as Mike quietly scans the brush.
And Snowload doesn't take trees and bend them under other trees.
And catches sight of movement behind the trees. It's fast, barely noticeable, but unmistakable to those who know what to look for.
It's back there. Right in that area. The best part about this place is I always have it to myself.
Moments later, Mike addresses something odd about the forest's energy. He's not alone. There's a distinct, almost emotional pressure. If you've followed his channel, you know he talks about this often, what he calls the quiet presence.
That would be like the tree right there, right? That they described, but it was darker. They said it was like a...
Suddenly, he stops. There's a structure near the base of a tree. 3 large limbs woven together like a low tent, not naturally fallen, placed. Mike kneels, examines it. This isn't wind damage, it's intentional. The type of formation seen time and again in Bigfoot hotspots. He documents everything but touches nothing. Then comes the audio.
We've seen that with the dogmen too. If I can find that photo, I'll drop it in here.
Off camera, the dogs from the nearby farm begin to bark, but not at Mike. Their attention is somewhere else, deeper into the woods. And then, a thud. Watch for yourself as Mike captures a distant knock. one, then a second, like wood striking wood. It echoes just enough to seem deliberate, as if answering the dogs. This is one of the most commonly reported Sasquatch behaviors, tree knocking.
I remember I was standing in this general area, looking up that way, and there's a ridge that goes up and over, and there was a...
Later in the video, Mike references something unusual, the possibility of a dogman. It's a cryptid many researchers hesitate to even mention, but he doesn't mock the idea.
Big orb. Confused me for a minute, to be honest with you.
He reflects on the shape described by the landowner, a tall, upright figure with a more angular face. Could this land be home to more than one mystery? Mike doesn't try to convince the viewer. He lets the evidence breathe.
Actually, there's a game trail right there.
His voice is calm, observant, and always respectful toward the land, the people, and whatever else may be listening.
How many people talk about these things and try to communicate them, and then just because it's on the news.
As the sun lowers, Mike offers one last gift to the woods, an apple, and places it gently at the base of a tree. He thanks the forest. Then he leaves. There are no flashy endings here, just questions, a sense that something real happened.
They watched the video of that part. I give them the highlights, reels of it. And,
but not loud enough for the world to hear it all at once. Watch for yourself as Mike exits the forest line and looks back one last time. He pauses, watching something only he can see. For those seeking real, respectful Sasquatch research grounded in experience and quiet observation, Long Island, Bigfoot offers something rare, a voice of calm in a field filled with noise.
There's stuff whistling over here. That might be a bird, but back that way there's something mimicking. So on this side there was like...
Could this farm be a meeting point between two worlds? What else might be roaming the edges of our known reality? Unseen, but not absent.
We're gonna have to come back here a few times because I forgot how good this spot is in the winter.
In the vast, untamed wilderness of Montana, where towering pines stretch toward storm-filled skies and the land seems untouched by time, there's one YouTube channel that's been peeling back the layers of the unknown, World Bigfoot Central. Hosted by Sasquatch investigator Duke Sullivan, this channel doesn't deal in stories, it deals in evidence. But here's the real question. What happens when you return to a location already known for colossal footprints and eerie signs, only to discover even more intense activity? That's exactly what this second expedition to the mysterious Montana Ridge was all about. Duke and his team weren't just out for a hike. They were walking into what some believe is the stomping ground of the mountain giants, a term used to describe impossibly large cryptids reported in isolated regions. These aren't your average Bigfoot tracks. There's something far heavier, far more unsettling. Watch for yourself.
You left a nice crater in the ground too. So what was that you were just saying, Johnny?
I just, it's 15 from the...
Yeah, no, before that.
It's easy to track.
They descend into the gully, scanning the soil and tree line. That's when a fresh track is found. An enormous, defined print that sinks deep into the ground.
You guys can see that, I'm sure. Nice crater. Here's a crater. Again, about the same size.
It's not a casual step. It's a weight-bearing impact. A footprint that speaks of a being moving slowly, deliberately, and with purpose. No drag marks, no signs of hoaxing, just sheer mass pressing down into Earth. The camera holds on the impression. The scale is surreal. Watch for yourself.
Different angle.
What's striking isn't just the size of the footprint, it's the surrounding damage. A nearby log, half rotted but heavy, has been lifted and flipped, moss torn off. A small tree snapped halfway up its trunk. Something powerful walked through here, and it wasn't concerned with stealth. The team marks the spot, and Duke points out the distance between strides. It's not consistent with a hoaxer using fake feet. It's nearly impossible for a human to recreate without mechanical help. The spacing alone tells the story. You start to feel it. This isn't just a wilderness. It's a domain.
You're gonna walk down to the end of the ridge and back again, see if you can find any more tracks. The big ones cross down there sometimes, so.
Back on the ridge, the group decides to scan for new signs further up, and that's when the woods go quiet. That all too familiar silence in Sasquatch investigations. The absence of birdsong, the stillness of wind, a quiet that doesn't calm. It tightens the chest. From above the tree line, a faint knock, not a branch falling, a clean, hollow strike, and then another. Something's signaling, but it's not human. The knock pattern doesn't repeat. It's not rhythmic. It's communicating.
There's the brush shelter. Figured as long as I was here, it'd make a nice little backdrop, and we can.
Then a distant shuffle is heard in the brush just ahead. Not a sprint, just pacing, watching. Whatever's there isn't fleeing, it's flanking. Watch for yourself.
Going across the hillside on my way back down. We have another one here.
One team member spins the camera toward the sound, catching the barest movement. A silhouette parting the trees for just a second. A dark mass blends with the timber. No fur details, no eye shine, just scale, height, bulk. And then it's gone. They don't chase. They hold position, respecting the line. This isn't about confrontation. It's about coexistence. That's what sets Duke's investigations apart. No dramatics, no overreach. Just honest fieldwork, boots in the mud, documenting what most people choose to ignore.
I ran a majority of time, covered an area about 65 miles north into the foothills of Arkansas's Ouachita Mountains. With the exception of a few mom-and-pop businesses, everything was rural routes and back roads.
Later in the video, Duke recounts the origin of one of his longtime collaborators, known for tracking the Fook monster in Arkansas. The connection between that southern cryptid case and the Montana Ridge might seem far-fetched, until you realize both share the same patterns: massive prints, deep woods intimidation, tree structures, and non-aggressive observation. As if these beings are simply monitoring us as much as we're trying to find them. In both places, the deeper message seems the same. You are not alone out here. So the question remains, what are these mountain giants? Ancient primates surviving off the grid? Interdimensional entities as some theories suggest? Or simply a side of nature we've refused to accept? World Bigfoot Central doesn't claim to have all the answers, but it's giving us the pieces. You just have to look. If you've ever felt watched while hiking remote trails, maybe you were. Watch for yourself.
This looks like the kids. Local kids, maybe. Holy bleep, did they put a lot of work into this.
So what do you think? Is there a species walking the shadows of Montana, hiding in plain sight? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever had a moment in the woods that made you question what else might be out there? Deep in Florida's wild prairies and swamps, the terrain doesn't just tell a story. It holds secrets most of us will never see. This isn't just hiking through nature. This is calculated tracking. And for Mark Zaski, it's about understanding how something unknown is surviving right beside us. Out here, the dirt, the roots, even the way the grass folds over itself, it all matters. Subtle terrain changes lead to real clues. The team moves through zones where dry prairie shifts into swampy wetlands. These transition zones, that's where things get interesting. That's where footprints start showing up. Watch for yourself.
That's where you want to look for tracks. So literally, Where do we find a track today already? In the sand.
Yeah.
So it's areas that will take a track. You can find tracks.
One print, clear as day. About 15 inches long, left heel still visible in the sand. But it's faint, not deep. And that tells Mark something critical.
This is a 15.5 to 16-inch Bigfoot track. But it's very subtle because the ground is in a spongy...
This creature isn't putting all its weight down. It's navigating carefully, probably on 2 feet, and doing its best not to be noticed. The trail shows movement along the tree line, through open prairie and into the dense vegetation. You can't chase Bigfoot. You have to read the ground, the environment, and see how it's being used.
You can then, if you do a big enough area, slide under it like a blanket. And that's what the creatures are doing in these situations where you see them on the ground, you can't see their body.
In one spot, tall grass mats over itself like a natural blanket. Mark lifts the whole section like a lid. It's heavy, rooted, but under it is a smooth surface. Something had been sliding beneath it, crawling under the thick vegetation without disturbing the top layer. That's not natural. Something is using this as cover. Watch for yourself.
When he stepped there, it was probably a little deeper, but it's resettled like memory foam.
Okay, yeah.
That's where you get in some of these spots where you start seeing this grass.
Then it happens. A figure moves in the distance, just behind a cluster of palmettos. There's no sound, just a blur, tall and dark.
They're gonna make people seem like they're crazy.
Yeah.
They're gonna try to cover it up, but mark my words, this park will produce, on the outskirts, many incidents.
Mark doesn't flinch. He's seen it before, and the evidence tells him what most people still doubt. These creatures are here, and they know exactly how to remain unseen. He circles the area and finds more prints. One clearly belongs to a juvenile, maybe 11 inches, narrow heel, soft pressure. Another is 17 inches, heavier, and turned at an angle.
I asked like 5 minutes later, 10 minutes later.
There's a hand, though.
Are you serious?
Yeah, look. Big, wide. Yeah. This is a big, wide.
They're traveling together, a group. This isn't a lone creature. It's a pattern. These impressions aren't random. They're moving between food sources and cover, avoiding open space when they can. Further down, the earth changes again, sandy and damp. Mark spots faint toe marks, barely pressed in, almost as if something walked across like a ghost. But the stride, the distance between prints, it tells him it was real. Nothing natural walks with a 5-foot stride out here. It's not a bear, it's not a human, and it's not in a rush. Mark knows these patterns well. He's documented it for years. The prints show varying depths, some deep, some light, indicating different sizes and weights. The larger ones avoid hard surfaces. They stick to soft earth, palmetto flats, creek beds, places where they can move silently and leave minimal trace. It's strategic, calculated. Watch for yourself.
All of their foot is right here. This is that same small one. Okay. So we know it. Here's the big one. You can see the big toe.
When the team returns later, parts of the trail are freshly disturbed, grass matted differently. Some sticks moved, not enough to scream creature, but enough to say, something large came through here, and it watched us come and go. That presence is always just outside the camera's reach, but always felt. Watch for yourself. Mark isn't chasing stories. He's chasing patterns, footprints, habitat destruction, feeding behavior. These aren't guesses. They're documented changes in an ecosystem. Each step deeper into the swamp brings more evidence, but with it, more questions. How many are there? How close are they watching? And just how much do they know about us? What if alien life wasn't something locked away in a government vault or hidden in distant galaxies, but quietly revealing itself in the woods of Pennsylvania? That's the question at the center of one YouTube channel that documents it all. The channel is called Deb's Local PA Alien and Dimensional Research. And unlike viral creators or loud personalities, Debs isn't here to entertain. She's here to observe, to record, and to question. She walks into the woods alone, nearly every day, camera in hand, trying to understand what's happening in these small patches of forest. Her videos don't rely on dramatics, they rely on presence. It starts with the sounds. The moment she steps out of her car, you hear it, a shift in tone.
Do that at the Mad Hatter. Oops, I'm forgetting the street now. Hello.
The birds go quiet. The static in the air thickens. In one video, she barely sets foot outside before she spots movement just off the trail. Something short and fast, ducking behind a tree before the camera can catch it. Watch for yourself as Debs notices something near the brush line, before the day's investigation even begins.
I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding me? What is that?
There's no announcement, no build-up. She quietly says, "There's something over there," and moves in closer. That's the rhythm of her work. Calm, deliberate, focused. What she's seeing or sensing never stays long. It's like the woods let you glimpse things, but only if you don't stare too long. On that same trail, she returns weeks later and finds the little red door.
We were at the little red door, obviously. I just said that.
Not a fairy tale, a real tiny wooden door, fitted neatly into the base of a tree. It wasn't there before. Next to it, a Canadian flag, a plastic frog, a gnome. The scene looks staged, like someone built a shrine, but no one claims it. No trails lead to it. And when she comes back a few days later, the setup is rearranged, not vandalized, rearranged, as if something or someone interacted with it. Watch for yourself as she quietly documents the arrangement and questions how it keeps changing.
I hope I see the black things when I get out of the car.
Debs doesn't offer explanations. She films, she reacts, and she leaves space for viewers to interpret. That's what makes her footage compelling. One video captures what she calls a portal tree. She's shown it in multiple videos. Its trunk twisted in a strange way, spiraling in toward itself like it's folding inward. The leaves around it shimmer slightly when the sun hits a certain angle. But it's not light distortion. It's different, and near that same tree, she hears something whispering. Not voices, just a vibration, like static rising and falling right in her ear. Later in the same area, a small shape appears behind a tree. No face, just a gray outline, low to the ground. She stays silent and films it until it's gone. Watch for yourself. She turns the camera slowly and catches the figure peeking out, almost playfully, before it vanishes.
There's 1, 2, 3 in between this tree right here. Yes, there was. There's 1 and 1, 2.
There are no dramatic sound effects in her videos, no narration or interviews, just raw footage, subtle clues, and the feeling that something intelligent might be watching from just beyond the frame. Watch for yourself. The entire clearing holds a kind of tension, like something invisible is standing still, waiting.
Oh, what's going on? Did you guys crash again?
She never claims to know exactly what she's encountering. Her videos are not about conclusions. They're about moments, glimpses, signs that we are not alone, but that whoever or whatever else is out there doesn't always want to be seen. And maybe that's why the videos are so haunting, because they don't scream for attention. They whisper, they suggest, they leave you with a question. If it were you in those woods, would you even notice something watching?
But anyway, I mean, I knew because I would see it, but I could not, even scrubbing a video, which is frame by frame by frame, I could not slow it down enough to show you.
Have you ever wondered if something enormous, ancient, and intelligent is hiding just out of sight in the forests of the Rocky Mountains? This isn't just a question for folklore fans. This is the obsession of the dedicated team behind Rocky Mountain Sasquatch, a YouTube channel known for some of the most intense boots-on-the-ground Bigfoot research out there. They've captured tracks, strange sounds, and even caught glimpses of shadowy figures in places few dare to explore. The team behind Rocky Mountain Sasquatch believes that Bigfoot's ability to stay hidden comes from constant movement.
And how rare sightings are, there probably aren't very many of these creatures, and their personal territories are more than likely very large, and that makes it very difficult to pinpoint when and where a Bigfoot is.
Like a wild animal with no set home. They compare it to tracking a mountain lion. Plenty exist, but they're rarely seen.
That makes a cognizant effort at hiding from people. Mountain lion are plentiful in comparison to Bigfoot, and mountain lion are rarely seen in the wild too.
It's that same skill set, elusiveness, stealth, and intelligence, that makes Bigfoot the ultimate hide-and-seek champion of the wild. Watch for yourself how they explain Bigfoot's stealth and movement. Their attention is drawn to Colorado's San Juan Mountains, specifically Devil's Mountain.
Hope you enjoyed a personal experience while out on an expedition in the San Juan mountain range on Devil Mountain,
where a recent expedition yielded one of their most intriguing findings. 2 weeks after camping deep in this remote terrain, another researcher discovered a trackway of massive footprints near Vallejo Reservoir, not far from where the Rocky Mountain Sasquatch team had set up base. They nearly camped at that exact spot. The team recalls, "It's wild to think we were right there, and 2 weeks later, someone finds a trackway." That moment shifted their belief from mere curiosity to conviction. They believed the creature could have been watching them, just out of sight, hiding in the thick timber. Watch for yourself the reflection on this eerie timing. The Rocky Mountain Sasquatch team doesn't work in a vacuum. They analyze encounters across the continent, including footage from other researchers like Les Stroud, aka Survivor Man. In one chilling case, a large humanoid figure appeared behind Stroud during a survival shoot. Stroud slipped on a cliff edge, and in the background, something massive moved through the trees. The team zoomed in 350%. The figure had a deep brow ridge, thick neck, and wide shoulders.
I hope you enjoyed a look at what may be a Montana Sasquatch in a secure hiding spot.
No crew member matched the bill. Stroud himself admitted, "I don't know what that was." Watch for yourself the breakdown of this footage. Bigfoot doesn't always vanish, they explain. Sometimes it stays in one region for weeks, possibly following salmon, foraging, or even tracking the humans who enter its space. That's why multiple sightings in a short span, like what happened near Devil's Mountain, should be taken seriously. The belief forming is that Bigfoot might be an apex nomadic creature, strategically traveling between high-elevation locations, following food, and avoiding humans by moving quietly at night or during storms. Like a bear, but smarter. Like a wolf, but more silent. Could this be how it remains hidden year after year? Watch for yourself how they connect Bigfoot's intelligence to its mobility. Rocky Mountain Sasquatch isn't offering fantasy. They're offering on-the-ground research backed by tracking, geography, and timing. When trackways show up exactly where their camp stood days earlier, and when salmon spawn lines up with sightings, you have to ask, is it still a myth? Or are we slowly closing in on the truth?
And several years ago, a couple of Bigfoot captured on camera.
Watch for yourself how close they might really be. What do you think? Could Bigfoot truly be roaming the peaks of the Rocky Mountains and the dark forests of the Pacific Northwest? Have you seen anything strange in the woods? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and be sure to subscribe to Rocky Mountain Sasquatch for more investigations, boots-on-the-ground footage, and stories from the edge of wilderness, because the next clue could be just one ridge away. So, were these just misidentified animals? Or do these face-to-face encounters point to something much more real? The forests aren't empty, and hundreds of witnesses are starting to speak out. Have you ever heard something strange while camping? Or seen something you couldn't explain? Tell us in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more true Bigfoot encounters caught deep in the wild.